There we go. Have to do that every time. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be ranking every Nintendo system. We're only doing like the base model, or like besides the Switch, we're doing just the base, like the original version of every console. So yeah, let's get started. So let me just go over these layers before we get started. We have a great concept, great execution, being like the top of the line, best Nintendo system. Then we got great concept, poor execution. Good in theory, did not execute it very well. Exactly. Poor concept, poor execution, not great overall. No, stop, get it away. I don't like that. And then have never used you and don't have an opinion on you. That's just for any console I do not own any type of. And do not want to form an opinion on right now. You might see me put some consoles I don't own in some of the other ranks. Those are just my opinions, but if I don't want to form an opinion because I have never really used it and I don't have a good experience, like I don't have any experience with it, I'm going to put it down here. So the first one we have here is the Game & Watch. So I don't own an actual original Game & Watch, but I own the Mario Game & Watch, and I am planning on buying that Zelda Game & Watch when it comes out later this year. Why? Because I hate money, apparently. So this thing, it's very hard to judge in this day and age because it was great back then, but right now it's like, who would want this? I guess great concept, great execution, because the concept was something like, let me actually Google it. According to legend, Nintendo engineer Gunpei Yokoi came up with the concept after observing a bored Japanese salaryman absent-mindedly poking at the buttons of his pocket calculator whilst traveling to work. This seemingly innocuous encounter ultimately gave birth to portable video gaming as we know it today. So this was, like, the concept of it was for portable aspects of it. You should use it on the go. Like, it basically was the start of portable gaming, like the Powkitty RGB10 Max. Yep. Basically every portable handheld was in some way inspired by this. So it was a great concept and great execution. Game Boy. I've never used you and do not have an opinion on you. I know a lot of people like the Game Boy. I know there were a lot of revisions of the Game Boy, but I do not own a Game Boy and have never officially been able to play any Game Boy games. I've never had an experience with one, so I don't want to make an opinion on it. Then we have the GameCube. So I know it was a great concept. I'm just trying to figure out if it was great concept, great execution, or great concept, poor execution, because the GameCube did not sell that well. It was a good system, did not sell that well. So I guess that puts it in great concept, poor execution, because the consoles, Nintendo's console sales before the Wii were declining, like slowly, and the GameCube was that calm before the storm that was the Wii. Come to think of it, the Wii kind of, we'll get into that later, but it kind of is the same thing the Switch is, except it can actually do backwards compatibility. I'll explain more later. Great concept, poor execution, just because I do not own a GameCube and I like the GameCube. Games were good. Not a lot of third-party support, and it was not all too appealing, but it was very cheap. So great concept, poor execution. NES. I guess great concept, great execution, because you can't really judge the first game console from 1980, 80 something, because it's so old. It's hard to judge it in 2021. Great concept, great execution, because the NES started a lot of franchises like Kirby, Mario, Zelda, a lot of franchises were started. Pretty sure Metroid started on the NES. It's just hard to judge because of how good games have gotten and how much the NES has aged. Let's move on to the SNES, since that one's after the NES. I think I'm gonna have to put it in great concept, great execution, because it's a more powerful NES. Can't play NES games, but it housed a lot of great games: Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, Zelda game, whatever that was. But looking at it retrospectively, it definitely was a great console, and it has held up kind of well over the years. I mean, it hasn't held up the best, but if you're a fan of Nintendo and their past, you'd probably get a kick out of this because it is a good console overall. Let's start going chronologically. Nintendo 64. I'm gonna say great concept, poor execution, just because the Nintendo 64 was a good console. I have one, and I have a few games for it. It started Mario Party. It started Mario Party. It had Super Mario 64. It had Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. It had a lot of great games. It's a great concept. The poor execution came from it using cartridges when most other game manufacturers had moved over to discs, and that controller was just hideous. Like, I've come to love it, but like, oh my gosh, that is one hideous controller. 4 controller ports is nice. The shape of it's kind of weird, but it's cool, I guess. And a good start to Nintendo's 3D world, like 3D headspace. I think the GameCube and Nintendo 64 are tied for me in terms of best Nintendo console, just with overall quality of games and stuff. It's tied, but I think the GameCube is a little better just because it has discs, the controller isn't awkward to hold, and it's just an overall better design. It's a cube. It's not this weird rectangle lumpy shape that the N64 is. If you see me looking up like that, I'm looking at the Nintendo 64 on my shelf. After the Nintendo 64, we've already done the GameCube and we've already done the Game Boy. So I guess that would be the Nintendo. Actually, I forgot the Pokemon Mini. I'm gonna put it in. Have never owned you, have never used you, and do not have an opinion on you, because I think that fits it perfectly. Because I kind of have an opinion on it, but I've never owned it, so I haven't formed a full opinion. Nintendo TS goes into great concept, great execution. Not sure that much has to be said. The DS, the original model was like a chunky one. Not a very good model by today's standards, but the different revisions that have come out for it and how the console just overall aged well, it aged very well. Because there were a lot of good games for it, continued a lot of franchises. It launched with Super Mario 64 DS, which is crazy that they put Super Mario 64 on a handheld system. Their DS line of systems were great sellers. They sold over 150 million units of them, which was an incredible success. But that's basically it for the DS. I guess next we should talk about the Wii. Great concept, great execution. Nintendo really hit it out of the park with this one. While I do prefer the Switch because of how more focused they are on full, how much more focused they are on core gamers instead of casual gamers is better. The Wii was a success. But like I mentioned, this was more a system for casual gamers. That is definitely who they were marketing it to. They definitely wanted it for gamers who weren't gamers, and I think the quality of the games suffered a little bit. Like, we had a bunch of just Wii branded games like Wii Party, Wii Play, Wii Music, and Wii Sports. And while those are all great titles, they are definitely more centered towards the non-gamer, like someone who doesn't regularly play video games. Except they're all good games, and if you're a Nintendo fan, you definitely want to play them. But Wii Party is for people who like board games and want a board game type game. Wii Play, Wii Music, Wii Sports Resort, Those are all games focused towards people who don't usually play video games. And while they're great games and I'd like to see them brought over to the Switch, we know Nintendo is now more focused on core gamers, so they want to give us a better experience. And like I mentioned before, the Switch is kind of like the Wii, because the Wii was, its backwards compatibility game was on point. Like, you can play any GameCube game on that, and there's controller ports, and there is a what is it? A save card. It basically took anything the GameCube took, except for the Game Boy player. It was great for backwards compatibility in the era. The Switch is different, and we'll touch on this in a sec. But the Switch isn't really backwards compatible. Nintendo's kind of made it backwards compatible by selling all of the same games to you at $60. But that's just how it has to be, I guess. So I guess next up is the 3DS. Great concept, great execution, or great concept, poor execution? Because this could be put in two different categories. Because while the 3DS is great, loved it a lot, I did really like it, I do think it could have been better executed. Like, it didn't have to take after the DS form factor so much, because I feel like a lot of people saw it and were probably like, what's the difference? Why can't I just keep using my DS? So maybe, sorry, my nose is itchy. Maybe if they made it look a little different, they would have gotten better sales and like it would have looked better. But overall, it is a great system. I do enjoy it. There were so many good games on it.
Mario Kart, Chibi Robo Zip Lash, actually that doesn't count, do not put that in. Animal Crossing New Leaf, I put so many hours into that game. Super Mario Maker 3DS was not that good. Super Smash Bros, Fire Emblem.
So many good games. So many good games. Some bad ones too, like Chibi Robo, Paper Mario, Switch Lite. I feel like I need a new row for this. I've never used it, but I do have an opinion on it. It was kind of a good concept. I feel like it should make a poor concept, great execution. But I think I'm gonna have to put it in poor concept, poor execution. Not because I hate the thing, and I think it makes sense for a lot of people who enjoy the Switch Lite and like it only use the Switch portably, but not good that the Joy-Cons are stuck to the system because of Joy-Con drift. Not good that it can't switch. It's kind of the whole point of a Switch, that it can switch. It's just a weirder system. But the Switch Lite is just a very weird console. Very weird. I don't understand it. I get it's good for children if you want to buy multiple Switches, but you don't want to buy multiple Switches. Just get a Switch. You can take it out. Multiple people can use it. It's not that hard. It's only $100 more. A Wii U? Great concept, poor execution. I like the idea of it. Having a console with a gamepad for multi-screen use was a good idea. Very bad execution. Wii U games. There are a lot of good ones. There are also a lot of bad ones. Star Fox Zero. I've heard it's really bad. I own it. I'm not going to play it anytime soon. Paper Mario Color Splash. Okay game. I mean, it was good enough to finish, but it's not anywhere close to the quality of the original games. Mario Kart 8 was good. Super Mario 3D World was good. A lot of good titles. Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival was awful. It's just that they had a lot of good games. And when you look back at it, it is a lot of games. A lot of first-party games. But during the lifespan of the Wii U, there were a lot of like time spans between big releases. Like you would go months without hearing anything, which is not ideal for a system you want to have do well. Which it's very Nintendo was very lucky that they had the 3DS holding them up during the Wii U's life, because if the 3DS flopped, Nintendo flopped. They would I don't know what would have happened, but the Wii U, I love that thing. So many games have been ported over to the Switch. So many good games. They They just didn't seem to understand how to make a good successor to a console, because this was just the Wii 2. A lot of people didn't even understand that it was a different system. They just thought it was a tablet for their Wii, which doomed it from the start. But it was a good system. So Nintendo Switch, great concept, great execution. I think we can all agree on this one. The Switch, great that you can have multiplayer right out of the box with 2 controllers right there. The Switch LCD screen is fine. 6.2 inch screen is fine. I don't like the big bezels, but I mean, if I have to live with it, then fine. The portability aspect is key. I think Nintendo has to stick with this idea for as long as they can, because this is just doing gangbusters, and it's such an amazing way to play games. The only thing is, the Switch is not that powerful. A lot of games have trouble hitting 30 frames a second in Nintendo's first-party games, which is not good. Nintendo switching from Miiverse to just straight-up Twitter is great, moving forward in the social media space, making it easier for Nintendo YouTubers to use their footage instead of having to skirt around it in case of getting copyright strikes or claims, so they can actually make money. The games are great. Nintendo's definitely in their high era. I just hope that they don't get too cocky and start making bad games again. Like, I think that's what happened with the Wii. They thought they could do no wrong with the systems they made, and they messed up. They did. They made a bad console. They are doing very well. Joy-Con drift is awful. I hope they fix that. But it's a great console. It's fun. It's Smash Bros. Ultimate is great. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is great. Kirby Star Allies is okay. There's a lot of good games. Nintendo Labo was good. Not that great, actually. I liked it, though. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was great. Hyrule Warriors was great. Zelda Breath of the Wild was great. Super Mario Odyssey was great. There's just so many good games on this system compared to the Wii U. Which brings me to the last console on the list. The Nintendo Switch OLED model. Which goes in, no, stop, get it away from me. This whole section of the list, of the tier list, was created for this OLED model. I don't hate a console, but I very much dislike this console, this redesign of the Switch, because, you know, the video I made last week was very much praising this thing, because I was excited, and I'm a Nintendo fanboy, so I get excited at literally anything they do. And I'll buy anything they make, obviously. But 7-inch OLED screen. Feel like that should have been there from the start. I guess could have been easier to do it now than back then, because of, especially with the price decrease in those screens, but come on, you still could have done it. 64 gigabytes of internal storage should have been the standard. 32 gigabytes wasn't enough back then. I mean, phones were rarely would a phone have only 32 gigabytes of storage back then. Nintendo should have just given us 64 gigabytes in the base Switch and 128 in this new Switch. New kickstand, who really cares? Enhanced audio, again, who really cares? I mean, I guess this is great for some people, but like, I just don't care. The Joy-Cons are nice. The dock is cool. But and the LAN port is cool. I just don't think, I feel like Nintendo could have gotten away with all of this and still made a profit while pricing it at $300. There's no reason for this to be $350. I know a lot of people have been saying that this will phase out the current Switch over time and will drop down to $300, and I do believe that. But Nintendo, come on. What are you doing? Stop. The OLED screen doesn't cost that much. The decrease in parts you're using for the original Switch are the same in this one. There's no new RAM, there's no new CPU or GPU. It's all the same, except for this OLED screen. All those prices for those parts have decreased. You can get that OLED screen for pretty cheap. I don't understand why you felt the need to hike up the price. And if the Switch Pro rumors, if that thing will actually happen, ever, which I don't know if it will, because this seems like as far as Nintendo really wants to go until the next generation. Then will that be $400? Oh my gosh, $400 Nintendo Switch? Not my taste. Like that, $50 more will get you like. What's the price of a PS5?
I found this on the web.
$399. $50 more will get you a PS5. I mean, granted, they are hard to find now, but what is the price of an Xbox Series S? That's 5 gigabytes, 512 gigabytes, $299. What? No. $299? Nintendo, what are you doing? This is so dumb. There's no improvements in gameplay. All you're getting is a bigger screen. And while I guess that's good, it's a prettier screen. This doesn't... If you're looking into getting a Switch, you should get this one instead of the normal Switch. No one should get the normal Switch now. But... Nintendo, you couldn't have just given us, like, more RAM, better performance on some games. Some games struggle to even go past, like, 20 frames a second. You couldn't even help us there. I think that ends my rant, which ends this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next week for hopefully something better than this. Bye-bye.